Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. In the affluent neighborhood of Maplewood Heights, the air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant hum of lawnmowers. For Anthony Carter, a 52-year-old former federal agent, this was supposed to be a new beginning. After years of service in law enforcement, he had finally moved his family into a sprawling brick colonial, a sanctuary where his wife, Sarah, could tend her garden and their daughter, Maya, could ride her bike without fear as Anthony unloaded boxes from a sleek black SUV. He felt a sense of pride. Inside the box labeled Maya's Memories were cherished photo albums and childhood drawings. But as he turned toward the garage, a white and blue Maplewood Heights police cruiser caught his eye, slowing to a stop in front of his new home. Officer Mark Doyle, a man in his late 30s with a crew cut and piercing blue eyes, had been patrolling Maplewood Heights for years. He prided himself on knowing every resident and every car. But Anthony, a black man unloading a luxury vehicle, was an anomaly that disrupted the perception of order. Afternoon, Doyle called out, his tone overly authoritative. Anthony set the box down and nodded politely. The officer killed the engine, and the silence that followed felt charged. Just moved in? Doyle asked, stepping closer, his hand resting on his holstered weapon. Just now, Anthony replied, maintaining his composure. He had learned to control his tone in tense situations, a skill honed over decades in law enforcement. Big house, Doyle remarked, his gaze scanning Anthony rather than the property. Must be doing well for yourself. We feel fortunate, Anthony said, his voice steady. He refused to justify his existence to this man. Mind if I see some identification? Doyle pressed, stepping closer. A lot of break-ins in the area lately. Anthony felt a familiar anger rise, but kept it in check. I'm not required to provide identification. I'm on my own property. Doyle's jaw tightened. From my perspective, I see a suspicious individual at a residence. You could be casing the joint. I'm unloading boxes with my family. Anthony gestured toward the garage where Sarah had just appeared, concern etched on her face. My wife is right there. My daughter's inside. Doyle barely glanced at them, his focus solely on Anthony. That doesn't mean anything. Let me see some ID. The tension escalated. Anthony knew he could de-escalate the situation by showing his ID, but he refused to validate Doyle's prejudice. You have no probable cause to demand my identification. I would appreciate it if you would leave us to our moving. Doyle's footsteps quickened, his anger palpable. You don't get to turn your back on me, he snarled, invading Anthony's personal space. You think you're better than me? Anthony stood firm, the officer's aggression washing over him. Officer, I'm asking you to step back. You are escalating this for no reason. Just show him your ID, please, Sarah urged, her voice trembling. It's not worth it. Anthony glanced at her, seeing the fear in her eyes. He had fought for justice his entire career, and he wouldn't teach his daughter that their rights were conditional. No, he said firmly to Doyle's face contorted with rage. You're done, he spat, reaching for his baton. The sound of the metal extending sent a chill down Anthony's spine. Officer, think about what you're doing, Anthony pleaded, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. There is no threat here. You're disorderly, Doyle shouted, advancing toward the Lincoln Navigator. I'm going to get your ID one way or another. Anthony's heart raced as Doyle swung the baton, shattering the driver's side window. The sound echoed to the quiet neighborhood, and for a moment, time stood still. Anthony's world shattered along with the glass, and he felt the weight of reality crash down on him. Maya stood in the garage, her eyes wide with terror. The box labeled Maya's Memories felt like a cruel joke. He had just brought the ugliness of the world into their new home. The anger that had simmered beneath the surface erupted. This will not stand, he thought, as neighbors began to emerge, phones in hand, recording the confrontation. Doyle, emboldened by the audience, pointed the baton at Anthony. This is what happens when you don't cooperate with law enforcement. Ignoring the cameras, Anthony focused on his family. "This is over," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You've assaulted me and destroyed my property. You are done." Doyle laughed, a harsh sound. "You're the one going to jail. Turn around. Hands behind your back," Doyle ordered, his voice dripping with authority. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice." Anthony's disbelief surged. "You can't be serious. You're going to arrest me on my own property." Doyle lunged forward, grabbing Anthony's arm. But Anthony, trained in defensive tactics, instinctively pulled back. He wouldn't give Doyle the satisfaction of a fight. "Stop struggling," Doyle grunted, his face red with exertion. "I'm not struggling," Anthony replied, his voice steady. "I'm standing still." Sarah, seeing the handcuffs, stepped forward. "Get your hands off my husband. He's done nothing wrong." Doyle turned, his eyes wild. "You stay back or you're next." In that moment, Anthony made a decision. The time for de-escalation was over. He would not surrender his dignity. With a calmness that surprised even him, he reached into his jacket pocket. Pulling out a small black leather wallet, Doyle tensed, thinking it was a weapon. But Anthony revealed a gold badge, the emblem of the FBI. "My name is Anthony Carter," he said, his voice steady. "And you, Officer Doyle, have just made the biggest mistake of your career." Doyle's face drained of color as he realized the gravity of his actions. The handcuffs slipped from his fingers, clattering to the ground. "Dispatch! I need a supervisor at my location immediately," Doyle stammered, panic evident in his voice. Anthony turned to his family, who watched in stunned silence. He walked past Doyle. The power dynamic irrevocably shifted as he stepped into his home. The sirens wailed in the distance, a harbinger of the consequences that awaited Doyle. The incident became a national story, a symbol of systemic prejudice and abuse of power. In the days that followed, Doyle was fired and indicted on federal charges. Anthony, now a voice for change, stood before reporters, addressing the nation. "What happened to me was not an isolated incident," he stated. "It was a symptom of a deeper problem. Millions of Americans face similar encounters every day." The shattered glass on his driveway became a lens through which the country was forced to see itself more clearly. Anthony transformed a moment of personal violation into a national call for reform, using his platform to advocate for justice. As he watched Maya ride her bike, laughter filling the air, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The world wasn't fixed, but it was a start. The arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, and he would ensure that it continued to do so. To be continued. The tension in the air was palpable, and the stakes had never been higher. Would Anthony's newfound power lead to real change, or would it only deepen the divide? The story was far from over, and the world was watching. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the driveway, Anthony felt a surge of determination. He knew that this moment could be a turning point, not just for his family, but for countless others who would face similar injustices. The fight for justice was just beginning, and he was ready to lead the charge. But as he turned to face the gathering crowd of neighbors, he realized that the real battle lay ahead. Would they stand with him, or would they retreat into the comfort of their own lives, leaving him to fight alone? The answer hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty, as the first murmurs of conversation began to ripple through the onlookers. Do you want to know the fate of the heroes? Please post part 2. Subscribe to the channel and continue watching. Your opinion and support are important to me. Leave it in the comments. Thank you.